Hi guys, welcome back to the Knitting Expat Podcast channel. My name is Mina and I'll be your host today. Thank you so much for joining me. This podcast is a few weeks late. It was supposed to come out in February and we're now on the 10th of March. So a bit late, so apologies for that. The last 2/3 weeks have been super busy. And whenever I've been like, okay, today I'm going to sit down and film a podcast, something has always come up where I've not been able to do it. So here we are, finally sat down to do one. I think the last time I did a podcast would have been in January at this point, so a lot has happened since then. If you are not aware, if you are new to the channel, first of all, welcome. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. But if you are new, you might not know that I'm currently pregnant. I'm 24 weeks pregnant today. So getting there, about 5 months in, and definitely started to feel the effects of being pregnant. Out of breath a lot, struggling to move around as efficiently as I used to, or as much as I used to. Definitely got the signs of pelvic girdle pain, which is a joy. I didn't have this with Layla when I was pregnant with her, so it's definitely been harder this time around in that regard. But yes, otherwise I've been trying to take it easy as much as possible, trying to not overdo it. I've found on days when I've been overdoing it, like it really hits me in the afternoon sort of thing. I have Derek over there on the bed next to me up here in the office, so you might see him a little bit later. And yeah, so in other news, Layla's turned 5 now, so she's now a fully fledged 5-year-old. She's lost another tooth, so there's 2 teeth down now. And yeah, she's doing really well. She's doing great. I have lots of fun things to share with you today. But before we jump into all of that, I wanted to let you all know that I have a new pattern out. I released this pattern back in February, but again, I haven't done a podcast since I released the pattern, so here we go. It is the loop sweater that I am wearing. This is the second version that I knit, so I don't think I've ever worn this on camera, but this is what it looks like. And then from the side, got a bump. Front on, at least like what I'm seeing on the camera, like it kind of hides the bump quite nicely. You almost can't tell. At least I can't tell on the little screen. Maybe you can on like a proper screen. Anyway, really lovely, really warm, cozy jumper. The yarn I used is by Loop Fiber Studio, and Stephanie, who is the owner and proprietor of that company, is famous for her loop fiber bumps. So if you're a spinner, you've probably heard of them, but she's also in the last few years come out with this range of worsted weight yarns and fingering weight yarns. I used her worsted weight yarn for the 2 samples that I knit, so this is one of them, and the other one is like a yellow and black one, which if you watch my Vlogmas videos you will have definitely seen it because I wore it a lot during December. And these jumpers, both of them, I haven't worn this one as much because I'm trying to keep it as new as possible so Stephanie can use it as a booth sample in the future. Sorry, catching my breath every now and again. It's super warm. It is such a cozy winter jumper. It's great, and all I find I need is like a thin waterproof jacket over the top, and like that's all I need to go out in most weathers. And if it's like really cold, then I have my puffy jacket that I will wear on top, and it's a really warm insulating layer. More often than not, just around the house this would be enough to keep me warm. And actually right now I need to take it off because it's getting a little bit too warm to wear in here. Sorry for my paint stained top. Such is life. So that pattern is now available. It is available in 2 formats, so when you purchase it, it's just one purchase. You don't have to choose between the formats, you get both options. So you have my standard PDF pattern format with 11 adult sizes in the worsted weight yarn sized out for you, my typical thing. But I'm also offering it as a sizing with spreadsheet option. So there's also a spreadsheet that you can download, and you can download it using either Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. Those are the 2 programs it works with. So if you don't have Excel, you can use Google Sheets, which is completely free. So you don't have to like buy any software to use the spreadsheet. And with that, you can input your own gauge and your own measurements, and the pattern will spit out a customized set of instructions just for you. And I've had this tested over a variety of different yarn weights and sizes, and it works. And so that also means you can also use any weight of yarn. I have people knit it out of fingering weight, out of sport weight, DK, worsted, anything, and it should work with the sizing with spreadsheet option. You just have to do the gauge measurement, the gauge swatching. There's instructions on how to do that, and they're very specific because the spreadsheet needs to know specific numbers to be able to figure out the rest of it. So that's the only technical part really, which isn't really all that technical. You just have to follow the instructions for gauge swatching, and it's in stockinette, so it's not a crazy sort of swatch. And yeah, so tons and tons of options for that. I am hoping to get a child-sized version of that one released soon-ish, I think. But I also have another child sweater which has a similar construction that I'm thinking I might just do that one instead of having two very similar patterns, but we'll see how that goes. I haven't fully decided on that yet. But speaking about very similar patterns, in my last podcast I showed you two of these little hats that I knit, one for Layla and one for the baby, which actually I don't think I've said we're having actually no, I won't say it yet. I'll get to that in a second. We did find out if we're having a boy or a girl, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I showed you the two matching hats that I knit for Layla and the baby, and I was talking about potentially releasing this as a hat pattern, but it was brought to my attention that there's a pattern that already exists called the Musclebug Hat by Isolde Teague. I don't know if I've pronounced it right, but it's very similar sort of construction. The crown shaping is different. That's the only thing that's really different between this one and her one, and hers is also offered in a variety of different yarn weights, which I was planning on doing for this one as well. So I'm of two minds right now. Like the hats are very similar. I haven't seen her pattern. It's a paid for pattern, so I haven't bought it and like looked at it to see if there's anything else that's drastically different, but just looking at the photos of the hat and the description of the hat, it seems like it's basically the same concept. So I'm probably not going to be putting out a pattern for this one. As much as I would love to, I kind of don't see the point in putting out a pattern that already exists in a very similar format, in a very similar style. If it's already out there, why would I go through the effort of basically recreating the same thing? So yeah, I don't think I'll be releasing a pattern for this one unless there's like a huge demand for it or something. But like I said, Isolde Teague's Musclebug Hat seems to be almost the same, if not identical, to this. As I've said before, I have not looked into it in detail because I haven't bought the pattern, but from what I can tell, it looks like it'd be very similar. So yeah, I just wanted to update you guys on that one because I know I mentioned it in the last video and a few people pointed it out in the comments, so I went and checked it out and I was like, yep, no, you're right, it is basically the same thing. So I'm going to put a pin in that and probably not release this as a pattern. There we go. Just wanted to give you that little update as well. Okay, so moving on, let's jump into finished objects. I think I definitely showed this in the last podcast, which was Layla's Christmas jumper that I knit her, and I also knit a matching one for the baby in a larger size because the baby's going to be born in the summer, so she's not going to I just kind of gave it away there. She's not going to need a jumper in the summer when she's first born. We are having a girl. I was going to try not to give it away. I have a very cute little video clip of Layla explaining or telling what the gender of the baby is. So I will, if I can, insert that clip here for you guys.
I'm a big sister, and I'm going to have a little sister, and I'm going to also have, I'm going to be and I'm excited to be a big sister, and I'm going to share all my toys and clothes with my big sister.
Your baby sister.
My baby sister.
You excited?
Yeah!
So yeah, they've got matching jumpers, which is very cute, and this one fits Layla perfectly right now, and it's a little bit long, which is great. I always prefer garments and jumpers and things like this to be longer in the sleeves and body for children because they grow so quickly. And it's really funny whenever I knit her something, if it's a bit too big, because I usually knit it that way on purpose, her reaction will be, "It's okay mummy, I'll grow into it." I'm like, "Yes honey, you will, because you grow super fast." But this is the pattern that I'm probably going to be releasing for the child's in child sizes, because again it is very similar construction to the loop sweater. It's just in stockinette, so then you can do whatever you want with it in terms of color management. Here with this one I did stripes, but you don't have to do the colored stripes. You can just do it all in one color, or you can color block it like I've done other garments before if you don't want to deal with, because this does have a lot of ends. Obviously each of these color stripes will have its own set of ends. So I know for some people that would be really off-putting, and that's fair enough. If that's not your jam, don't do it. But if you don't mind and you like the look, then you can of course do the colour stripes. But the pattern will just be written for plain stockinette with instructions on if you want to add striping, what, you know, give you some ideas of what you can do. But ultimately that's up to you, how you want to do your striping. But yes, and then this will be available, and you could knit it at any gauge as well. This is done in fingering weight. You could do it in whatever weight that you would like. There again, if you're gonna, well, the actual PDF will be written in fingering weight, but the sizing with spreadsheet option would allow you to use any weight of yarn. If you were to use the spreadsheet, the PDF will only have it with one weight of yarn. It's just, otherwise it would be a bajillion pages long if I was to do it for every gauge as well. The yarn I used for this one, I don't know if I mentioned it before. I don't think I have. Sorry, baby brain is starting to get very real. This is yarn by the little grey girl, and she recently started doing yarn and stuff last year. So yeah, this is some of her yarns, and I think I need to speak to Gemma, but I think she will be putting together some kits for these when I finally get the pattern ready to go. I'm hoping to get the pattern written up and ready and out to testers before I go on maternity leave, so then by the end of the summer this will be ready to be published for the autumn season. So that's the plan for that one. Speaking of maternity leave, I am planning on taking like proper maternity leave this time. I didn't really when I had Layla. I kind of just kept going as much as I could, obviously, with a new baby around. But this time I'm planning on taking some like proper time off, because by the time the baby's born, or around the time the baby's born, Layla's going to be finishing her school year for the summer. So there's going to be a, you know, we're going to have about a month and a half, 2 months where Layla's not going to be in school. We're going to have a new baby and all of that. So I'm probably planning on taking some maternity leave at least over the summer, and then into the autumn winter as well, and just doing minimal work here and there. So I'm trying to get lots of patterns ready and at least out to testers or ready to go, so that later this year I have some things ready to be released and published, but I don't have to do a huge amount of, I've done all the prep work essentially ahead of time. That's the plan. I've not been great at it so far. It's definitely been slow going. I've not gotten as much done by now as I had hoped I would, but I'm taking it easy. I'm trying not to be too hard on myself, and I'm just like, it is what it is. It's the phase of life that I'm in right now, and ultimately I need to rest a lot more than I used to right now. I feel a lot more tired, and the pelvic girdle pain is definitely taking it out on me as well. It makes it really difficult to do just basic tasks. It gets triggered a lot by driving, which is not fun. And yeah, so there we go. Other things I have finished recently. So speaking of new patterns coming out, I had, throughout Vlogmas, Layla's been wearing this cowl a lot. This is one I knit for her a couple of years ago now. And it was yarn by At Haynes House, the lovely Terry. It sent some yarn for Layla, and I knit it into this cowl for her. And it is an adaptation from my road whipping cowl pattern, which is already out and released, and you can actually get it for free if you sign up to my newsletter, which links to sign up below in the description box. I don't send out newsletters very frequently. I'm really bad at newsletters. It's just a nice way for me to be able to let you know when I have a new pattern come out, or if there's some interesting bit of news that I want to let you know about. I put it in a newsletter. So if you sign up to my newsletter, you get the road whipping cowl for free. but that's knit out of fingering weight yarn and it's slightly different. So this is an adaptation of that cowl pattern, but I kept getting asked so many times about this as a pattern for children, and because it works particularly well for children, and I'll explain why in a second, but I decided to finally just write it up as its own separate pattern. So, and I wanted to knit another version of it just to make sure I got the instructions right, because it's not going to go through testing, this one. I'm just going to release it and it's almost ready to go. I just got it back from my tech editor, so I just need to do some final updates to it and then it's ready to go. So that should, this cowl pattern should be released next week, hopefully, fingers crossed. And it's called Laylas Cowl because I can't think of a better name for it, to be quite honest, because it's Laylas Cowl. And yeah, so I knit up a second version. You can see it clearer on the solid side of the cable pattern, and the cable pattern is on the variegated side, but because it's so variegated, it's it kind of loses some of that. I mean, you can see it in person, but on camera it doesn't show up very well. But you can see it very clearly that it's cabled in person. It's not that lost. But the yarn I used for this one was by the variegated is by Lavender Loon Yarn Company, and it's the Autumn Spectrum colorway on her MCN DK. And this is an unknown MCN DK that I had in my stash. So I used pretty much 2 skeins for this adult size, was the one I'm calling the adult size version. So I consider this like a single loop adult sized cowl. And this one, like I said, I used the yarn by Terry at Haynes House. You used a little bit over 100 grams for the child size one. So in the pattern I've marked it as being 150 grams, but I think it was more like 120. So I think it was 2 repeats short that I had to cut into another skein. You can kind of see the color difference here to be able to get it to the right length. So it takes just over 100 grams of a DK weight yarn for the child size version. You can always make it 1 repeat narrower, and then you could probably get it out of a single skein. I haven't tested that one. I might do that as well, actually. I might test it with a single skein of DK and do 1 repeat less to see if you can get it out of a single skein of yarn, because that would be good as well. But this works really well for children for a number of reasons. For one thing, I think from a safety standpoint, cowls are much better than scarves. Scarves, there's always the risk of like it being pulled tight and the kid choking on it, the ends getting caught on something, kids playing with each other and yanking on the ends. I don't know why, but the thought of that always terrifies me. Scarves can fall off, they can unravel and fall off quite easily. Cowls, it's a closed loop, it's not going anywhere. And because of how it's knit in the round and then grafted together, it's double thick, so it's extra warm. And the cables means it gives it structure, so when it's round the kid's neck, it's gonna for the most part it will stand up. It's not gonna flop over, it's not gonna like crumple up around the neck, it's gonna stand up and it will keep their necks warm. And this one, like I said, it's slightly smaller in circumference than what I would usually use as like a single loop for an adult size, but it means it stays around their neck quite nicely. It's not going to be too loose and floppy at the front. Like this one is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's loose, but you see how this just stands up? But that's just because of all the structure from the cables, and the double thickness of the cowl just allows it to stand up on its own. I mean, even the adult one, you could probably do a couple repeats less and it would be a little bit tighter around the neck if that's what you wanted. So yeah, I think it's a great option for kids. It's not going to fall off from around their necks, it'll keep their necks warm. Layla loves this one, she wears it all the time. And yeah, like I said, I've been getting lots of questions about it from people, and I think it's a really good option for children especially, but I've also put in like an adult size. It's very adaptable. You can change the width of the cowl by how many repeats you cast on, and obviously the length is adjustable based on how long you knit it for, but obviously those adjustments will affect how much yarn you need as well, so bear that in mind too. So that pattern is going to be coming out next week. Oh, and this one, like I said, it was by At Haynes House, is the yarn dyer. The colorway, I'm trying to remember now, I think it's Bob Says Hello, or Bob Says something, I can't remember exactly, but like I said, I knit this a while ago now. I do have it written down on the actual pattern what the colorway is called, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. And then for Layla's birthday, I knit her a couple of things. Her big present I'll show you at the end. You can actually see it, it's right there. It was the main focus of my last podcast, was talking about getting this done, getting that project done, which I did. But I'll show you that in a bit. But I also knit her these socks. So this is some Lang sock yarn in this pastel rainbow, which Layla picked out this skein of yarn when we went to Cornwall last summer, and she spotted it in my stash the other day and asked me to make her some socks. So of course I obliged, and I knit her some little socks. I used my baby socks pattern or kid socks pattern. To be fair, like I just use, I think, well, how many stitches? I think I just use 48 stitches for Layla now. And I just did a 2x2 rib for the cuff, and then I did a 3x1 rib for the leg and the top of the foot, just because then it gives the most flexibility for her to grow into them, and it keeps them on her leg quite nicely. But this used such a small amount of yarn. I had a lot of the skein left, like more than half of the skein left, and I recently finished her blanket, which I'll show you in a minute, and I did a border around the blanket, and part of the border was this puff stitch, crocheted puff stitch, and I've become somewhat obsessed with the crochet puff stitch at the moment. So I saw a video tutorial to do what was called a braided crochet puff stitch, and I wanted to try it out. So I just picked, I had the leftover of this yarn on my desk, and I just picked it up and chained a few stitches, and I was just practicing this technique just to see how it would look. And then as I kept going, I was like, oh, this looks really nice, and I wonder how far it would go. And I kept going and I kept going. I was like, oh, this is almost long enough to make a cowl. So I just kept going until I ran out of yarn, and then it was a little bit short of being long enough to make a cowl. So I grabbed another yarn from my stash and I finished it off, and I'll show you what that looks like now. So this is how it's turned out. So this is the braided puff stitch sort of pattern, which I thought was so cute, and it looks like little puffy knit stitches, which I really love the effect of that, and it looks really nice in the colour changing yarn. And then on the back, essentially, so what I did, I picked up on both sides and then added some extra length in just a basic, I think it was a double crochet or a half double crochet, US terminology here. I did a few rows of that in a very different weight of yarn, which in hindsight was not the best choice, but it's what I had on hand, so it's what I made it work. I literally made this cowl like 2 days before her birthday, so it was a very quick impromptu decision to make this for her. And then I just seamed it together using like a single crochet slip stitch thing on the back. I don't actually know what the term was. And then I went round the edge on the top and bottom and just did a single crochet edge to just sort of finish it off and make it look finished. And then I was practicing another puff stitch related technique for a puff stitch flower. And again, I thought it was really cute, and I did a red one, and then I just used the ends to attach it on. I just tied a bow on the back, so it's removable, it's not permanently attached, and added that onto the front for her. And she loves this as well. It's not the softest thing in the world. This sock yarn is not the softest sock yarn, but she likes it, and she says she'll wear it, so that's a win. So those were two of her birthday presents. These both need to be blocked, so I'll throw them, I'll add them to the blocking bucket. That blocking bucket is still full because I haven't blocked anything since I last podcasted. So this is a special present from Mummy.
Thank you. They're each a different size.
Yeah.
I think it's something yarn. Ah!
Go on, open it. I think you can look out. Get rid of this.
Rainbow socks.
Yeah, rainbow socks. You wanted socks, didn't you?
Yeah, rainbow socks. And I wanted this as well.
You got a cowl.
And a rainbow cow.
And I put a little flower on it for you.
Thank you, Mummy.
You want to try it on?
Can it be where the flowers in front?
Yeah, I think it's meant to be that way, honey. That's how I planned it. Oh, lovely.
Warm and snuggly.
Does it feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. Other things that I have finished. I'll show you these ones first before we get the blanket out, because that's a big boy. Let me just pop that in the blocking bucket. I finished another 2 pair of socks since we last spoke. This was some yarn I picked up from Sticks and let me just grab it. There we go. I found the tag, it was on my desk. So I got this yarn from Sticks and Cups Yarns in the Netherlands when we went on our European road trip a few years ago, pre-pandemic, 2019, 3 years ago. And it's in the Laylas Golden Syrup colourway. And I can't remember who I knit these for now. I did have someone in mind when I knit them, so they are going to go to someone in particular. But it's just a plain vanilla sock with my garter stitch heel pattern. So what I do for all of my heels is I do a mini heel flap adjustment and German short row heel, and I just do it in garter, and it creates a really nice soft squishy heel. And the rest of it is my usual vanilla sock pattern. I have 2 versions of my vanilla sock pattern. One is a free version, one is a paid for version, which comes with the heel instructions as well. The free version just has a standard slip stitch short row heel, not slip stitch, wrap and turn short row heel. But yeah, so otherwise, and I knit these on 2.25 US size 1 needles, so 2.25 millimeter. That is like my standard sock size. I think these were, pretty sure, 64 stitches. Then I also knit a pair of my London Bee Ridge socks, which is another pattern of mine. And this was from I can't remember the name of the yarn, and I don't have the tag anymore. But it was like a gradient stripe set yarns, so they were already caked into two cakes, and I just pulled from the inside and outside of the 2 different yarns, so the color changes going in the opposite direction. And yeah, I knit these extra long in the leg to try and use up as much of the yarn as possible, and that's how these have turned out. Okay. There we go. They're really fun, and I like the London Bee Ridge sock pattern. It's one I go to often as an alternative to just plain vanilla socks. It's a good way of also, because I like tracking how many rows I've knit for each section, so it's a really easy way for me to keep track of that as well, because I can count the number of ridges, and so I can count my rows that way quite quickly. So another 2 to add to my very full blocking bucket. I'm gonna have to fill the bathtub soon and block everything at once. Okay, so that's it for all my finished projects, bar the big one. So here's Layla's blanket. It's done. It's all seamed together. It's all edged and finished, and I'm so happy. All the ends are woven in, and yeah, I haven't blocked it because it's huge. Doesn't need to be blocked. And that's just the way it is. Yeah, it's really warm, it's really cozy. And actually for the last couple of weeks the weather here has been really chilly. It's like we've had a real cold spell. And then to make matters worse, this last week we didn't have, our heating wasn't working properly. There was something wrong with the boiler, so we've had that fixed now, thankfully. But for a few nights there, like, I had this blanket thrown on our bed on top of the duvet on my side. Perry wasn't cold. Layla never gets cold at night when she's in bed. Once she's asleep, she's like a little radiator. If anything, we barely ever turn her radiator on. Her radiator's normally turned off, and we even have the window open a crack just to stop her from overheating, because she just emanates so much heat when she's asleep. but I've been using this blanket quite a bit recently. She uses it a lot on the sofa in the evenings or like on the weekends and stuff, so she absolutely loves it as well. I actually have a video clip of her opening her blanket and stuff, and it's quite funny because the very first version of this blanket that I ever knit I made for my mum, and I gave it to her for her 60th, and that was out of fingering weight yarn as well. And then in the clip that I'll show you in a second, where Layla's opening this present, you can hear in the background my parents are on the phone as well. We were FaceTiming with them, and it's in Farsi, so you probably won't understand, but my mum's basically going, but that's bigger than my blanket, why is that bigger than my one? In fairness, I do need to make more squares and add them onto my mum's blanket. I did promise her I would do that 5 years ago, and I still haven't done it, but I will get to it at some point. But yeah, anyway, so this has turned out so much better than I ever could have expected. And it's super colourful and fun and bright, and Layla loves it. And so for the edging, I'll show you that. I did sort of post about it on Instagram and ask for your guys' input, because I couldn't think of, I'm not a experienced crocheter by any stretch. I barely know crochet at all. So I was asking for some suggestions, and in the end I went with just a basic single crochet border to create an established edge. Then I did that in like this white colour. Then I did this puff stitch edge out of this teal yarn, and then I went back with the cream white colour and I did it's called a crab stitch, or like a reverse single crochet, to create the final edge at the top. And lots of people will like use the same blue for the edge at the top, but I didn't have enough. This puff stitch edge took a whole skein to do just one round around this blanket, but I had plenty of the white left, so I did it in the white, and I actually quite like how that looks in the end. Some people were like, oh, you have to do it in red, and I was like, I would, but I don't have any red. I was very much limited to using what I already had in my stash for finishing this blanket. I didn't have time to go out and get more yarn or to order yarn online or anything like that, so it was very much a case of I have to use what I have sort of situation, and I think it's great. And if in the future I wanted to add another border to it, I could always add on to this. There's nothing to say you can't add on more edging ideas to this. So really happy with how this turned out. This pattern is available. My pinwheel scrap blanket pattern has been out for years now. That is available from my Ravelry and my Payhip shop. All of my patterns are available on Ravelry and Payhip, so if you can't access Ravelry, then you can find them on Payhip just as easily. The same prices, same everything else. The pattern for this blanket is actually written in fingering weight yarn. So the pattern tells you to cast on 30 stitches using I think 3mm needles or 3.25mm, something around that. So what I did was, this blanket is knit all with 4mm needles and 20 stitches cast on. So just a slight modification, and so I used mostly either DK, worsted weight, there's some bulky in there as well, or fingering held double, or sport weight held double. It's very approximate. The squares aren't all the exact same size, but once they're seamed together, they work fine. You can't tell that one square is bigger or smaller than the other, because they've got other squares surrounding them. They kind of even out and they all look the same. Plus it's a scrappy blanket. That's kind of the whole point, that it's scrappy and it looks a bit scrappy. But because it's out of like a heavier weight of yarn, this blanket is so heavy. It's a good sort of, the finished size of it, if I remember correctly, it's about almost 2 meters by almost 1.5 meters, so pretty big. It's a good sort of single bedspread sort of size, which is what I was kind of going for. I wanted it to be big enough to kind of cover like a twin size bed or a single bed as like a bedspread when she's older. But yeah, really happy with it. It is really cozy. It is great for naps on the sofa, and Layla loves it. So I will now insert that clip of her opening her blanket present and seeing it for the first time.
Yeah. It's a big one, isn't it?
Why did you give it wet? It's a bit wet. Hey, there's a big.
Rip it open, Daisy. Rip it open.
Okay, Rip. Okay, Rip. The blanket.
Yeah.
Blanket for me.
Yeah. It's a big blanket. It's a blanket. You want to open it up? Or do you want to ask Daddy to open it up for you so you can see it? It's a big blanket.
Oh, it's a heavy one.
Yeah. Why is it heavy?
Because there's so much material. Oh.
Daddy was bigger than the sofa.
Look how
You
big
like it?
Look how big it is, Liz. Is it the biggest one you've had before?
Yeah. Do it again!
It's huge.
Do it again!
Okay, I'm gonna put
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. In other news of other things going on, I'm going to mix it up a bit. I'm going to do an acquisition segment before I do my works in progress, just because my hand keeps hitting this and it's rustly and I don't want that to keep happening. So when I was finishing up Layla's blanket, I put out a call on Instagram for I was looking for mini skeins and I was asking people for suggestions of where to get some mini skeins from, and a couple of really lovely friends offered to send me some of their scraps or mini skeins so I could finish her blanket, and that was amazing. One of my friends who offered was Laura, who is the dyer behind Bumbling Yarns, yeah. Got the tag right here. I don't know why I'm struggling to read. Bumbling Yarns. And I've ordered her yarn before and it's really lovely. And she's also a fairly newish dyer based here in the UK. And that was the other thing. It had to be, I needed to order or whatever from UK based places because of postage and I didn't have time. It was all because I was on a real time crunch at this point. But Laura offered to send me some minis and I thought she meant that she was just going to send me some scraps, like from her other projects and stuff. I didn't expect this to arrive at my door. I was very surprised. It came a little bit later than she originally planned to send it out because she had the virus in her house, and so obviously she wasn't going to the post office and stuff, which is totally understandable. But I was very surprised when I got this package in the post because look how pretty these yarns are. And Layla's already picked out a few of these skeins that I need to knit socks for her. And then I also need to make socks for the baby, or I need to make something for the baby as well. So whilst they didn't get here in time for me to use them for the blanket, they will most certainly be put to good use. Layla's already selected what she wants from this. There's some balm in there and some stitch markers as well. So that was incredibly generous of Laura to send this. Like I said, I was fully just expecting some scraps. I was not expecting some of her beautifully hand-dyed mini skeins. So I'm going to put that to one side now so it stops rustling. And I have two other works in progress that I'm working on at the moment. And this is also kind of an acquisition because I did only buy this last week. So let me grab the other bag. Forgot about these as being acquisitions as well. So I guess that kind of worked, planning the acquisitions first. So I went to a yarn shop last week called the Yarn Dispensary here in the UK in Kent, and they're based out of they're in Faversham, and I'm actually going to be teaching there at the end of this month. I'm teaching there in person for the first time in so long. I'm going to be teaching a class in person, which is really exciting. So the first class I'm teaching at the end of March, I think it's on the 26th of March, is my heel pattern, so my German short row heel and mini heel flap adjustment. We're going to be doing that in the class. So if you are interested and you're local and you can get to Faversham, please check out the Yarn Dispensary's website. I believe they have all the details about how to book and everything on there. Or you can send me a message and I can send you details for that as well. I believe there are a few spaces left as of now. And anyway, so I had never been to that yarn shop before. And one of my friends who lives nearby, Gemma, who is the owner behind the Midnight Diary, she also works at the yarn shop. She's on maternity leave at the moment, but she offered to take me in one day to show me around and stuff. And I was like, well, it'd be nice to go see the shop and have an idea of like where I'm going to be teaching prior to the class. So we went in and we had a really lovely day out. And yeah, but before I left, I was like, I can't go to a yarn shop and not come home with some yarn. So I was immediately drawn to this on one of their walls of yarn, and it's by West Yorkshire Spinners. It's their Colour Lab DK yarn. They're a UK based company, reared, sheared and spun in Britain. So this is their 100% British wool DK weight, 225 meters or 245 yards in a 100-gram ball, and it's the Prism Bright colorway. So I actually picked up 2 skeins of this, and then I picked up a skein in their Citrus Yellow and a skein in their Deep Teal, which pick out some of the shades that are in the rainbow skein. And I decided I was going to make a series of leg warmers. So let me get them out. So I have actually finished one pair. So I finished one pair of leg warmers, and these are actually going to be for Gemma's little one. I tried them on him the other day when I went round and they fit him perfectly, so these are going to go to him because they're the right size for him right now. So those ones are done. I just need to weave in those ends. Then I cast on another pair slightly larger, and these are going to be for my baby for next winter. So I did them slightly larger because of how old she's going to be when the weather will be cold enough again. So this is more of a 6 to 12 month size I'm going for here. And I just need to do the second leg of this one. Then I plan on making larger ones, like matching ones for Layla as well, so she and the baby can have matching leg warmers for the winter, because I can't think of anything cuter than rainbow leg warmers on a baby right now, let alone matching ones with an older sibling. And then I'm probably going to have more left over to do something else with, so I haven't figured that out yet. So we'll see what else I do with the rest of the yarn, because yeah, I'm probably going to be able to get most of that. I'll probably barely tuck into this one for Layla's pair, and then I'll have tons of yarn left. So we'll see what these end up becoming, but for now, leg warmers are the current obsession. I'm not following a particular pattern. I looked at some free patterns on Ravelry to get an idea of stitch counts to cast on with, and I'm just kind of winging it from there, to be honest. It was really just the baby sizes, because with Layla I can just measure her leg and cast on based on my gauge. So that's my plan for that. I'm using, what size needles am I using? I think I'm using 3.75. Yeah, 3.75 millimeter needles, US size 5s, for anyone who is curious about that. And this is DK weight yarn, so it's a good sort of needle size for that yarn weight. Put these away. And then my last work in progress is kind of taken over the guest bed up here, but I'll show you the little component parts. Like I said, I have become somewhat obsessed with the crochet puff stitch as of the last couple of weeks. And since Layla's birthday, I have been obsessively crocheting these little crochet puff stitch flowers. Let me just pop them on my hand there so you can see. They're so cute, and they literally take a couple of minutes to do one. I'm using, again, DK or worsted weight yarn or fingering held double. You know, there's all sorts of weights in there. They're all slightly different sizes. None of them are super exact. There are some bigger, some smaller. It's fine, kind of thing. It all works. There we go. It's a little bouquet of flowers. Oh, Derek's just, but Derek, why'd you get off? it's like he knew. I was about to pick up the camera and show you the bed where all the other ones are, and he's just jumped down and gone off. Because of course he has. Yeah, he's headed for the stairs. Okay. Yeah, so those are the flowers, and I started this project just after Layla's birthday party, so right around the end of February. It's now the 10th of March, and I have since crocheted 520 flowers. Slightly obsessed, I tell you, obsessed. In about 2 weeks I've crocheted 520 flowers. It has been like what I've been doing whenever I've had a spare few minutes. Each one has taken around 2 grams of yarn, and like less than 5 minutes to make, so really quick. And I'm just going to grab the camera and show you all of them that are on the bed. I've grouped them into colour families, so then I need to figure out the best way to arrange them to start seaming them together. So let's go take a look. Okay, so here are all 520 crocheted puff stitch flowers. Yeah, somewhat obsessed, and they're all organised into their little colour families. Now I need to figure out the best way to arrange them. My plan is, since I've left all their tails still attached, and I've just knotted the tails together at the back to sort of tie it off essentially. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tails to attach them together, because they're like 6 petal flowers. They can kind of fit together kind of like hexagons. Just get a few together like that sort of thing. And yeah, I'm not following a particular pattern for these. I kind of just found a tutorial on how to do a puff stitch flower, and then kind of just went crazy evidently, and now I'm just sat here like, okay, now I need to actually put it together. So yeah, now I need to figure out how to put it together, how I want to kind of like try and merge the colours into each other, as it were, as it works through the blanket. What shape the blanket's going to be. I'm going to go for like a circular blanket, or try and stick with more of a rectangular shape. I don't even know how big it's going to be once I put all those together, so we'll have to see. The main reason I decided to do this was I was like, well, we have a lot of knit blankets in this house, knit and crochet blankets. I have the blanket I just finished for Layla. I have a mitered square blanket that I finished when we were living in Bahrain, so years ago, and I have a crochet granny stripe blanket that I finished last year or the year before, I think. And so those are all large blankets that we have, and then I have a ton of smaller, either baby sized or slightly larger than baby sized blankets that either I knit for Layla when she was a baby or before she was born, or were gifted to me, made by friends, etc. So whilst I still have all of those, and I even have some hand knit, hand crocheted baby blankets from when I was a baby. So whilst I have all of those things, and I plan on reusing all of those things, I felt like it was only right for this baby to have something made just for them. So I decided to do this blanket for her. I thought, it's different, don't have a blanket like it in our house, and it's also going to be bright, colourful and scrappy, and it'll be just for her. So yeah, we were very fortunate, and Layla was incredibly fortunate that she was, you know, she had so many beautifully handmade things, either by me or friends, etc., that were sent to her when I was pregnant. And so I kind of want this little one to have a few things that were just for her, and not just hand-me-downs. Because in fairness, I've not knit a lot of garments for this baby, just because I have so many from when Layla was a baby that I knit, and I kind of forgot how many baby knits I made for Layla when she was little, until I pulled everything out and I was like, wow, I made a lot of stuff when Layla was a baby. And she did wear all of them, in fairness, and you know, they're getting, I've given some of them to my friend Gemma, who has a little one. I think he's like 3, almost 4 months old now, so he's getting some use out of them, and then once he's grown out of them, we'll get them back for this baby, like I said, because she's going to be born in summer. she won't need anything for the first few months. So I've been very reluctant to knit a lot of stuff for like the newborn size. She's just not going to need it. So yeah, other than one thing, I think I've knit one jumper in a newborn size for her that may or may not end up being like her coming home jumper type of thing, because Layla had a cardigan that I knit her that she came home in. And yeah, and I actually did go out the other day with Layla and we bought a special outfit for the baby to come home in, like a coming home outfit. Because there again, I was contemplating reusing Layla's one, but then I was like, actually no, kind of wanted to have her own one, as it were. We're reusing a lot of Layla's old clothes that we've kept, or we're getting lots of hand-me-downs from other people and stuff. So it's nice to have some things that are just, you know, just specially bought for her kind of thing. But yeah, in terms of other news, what other things have we been up to? We went to Disneyland. We went to, I completely realised I hadn't mentioned this until we were already in Paris. But pre-pandemic, we had booked a trip to go to Paris in May of 2020, which, as you can imagine, did not happen. We rebooked it for the summer. That did not happen. Then we postponed it to winter of 2020, like that December. That also did not happen. Then we pushed it to sometime in 2021. That didn't happen. We pushed it again to later in 2021. That also did not happen. And so we pushed it again to the February half term, or like when schools have a break for about a week, and we're like, we can do it then. It also works out quite nicely because Layla's birthday was just after half term and she was turning 5, so we can make it like a birthday trip, and then we can also go to Disneyland at the same time. Let's do Disneyland for the first time with Layla, and that'll be her main birthday present kind of thing. And yeah, let's do that. It's kind of like we did New York at Christmas, and that was her main Christmas present, and then like Disneyland for her birthday was her birthday present. I'm trying to focus more on doing experiences with her for like events and things, and she'll still have like a few small presents maybe for her birthday and Christmas and things like that, but like a main present, having it be like an experience. Anyway, so that was the plan, and it wasn't until maybe about 2 weeks before we were going to go that we actually booked Disneyland itself, like the actual Disneyland part of the trip, because we had our Eurostar tickets to go to Paris. That was what we'd had originally back in May 2020. And those are the ones that we just kept rebooking and rebooking, and thankfully we were able to change it as many times as we needed to for free because of the pandemic. So that worked out okay. But because we weren't sure we were going until literally a couple of weeks before we went, we hadn't really booked anything, and then I hadn't talked about it because I didn't know if it was going to happen or not. But yeah, so we ended up going. We had one full day in Paris. We were in Paris on Valentine's Day, was our one full day. And we went up the Eiffel Tower in the morning, like first thing in the morning. I think we had like 9:30 a.m. tickets, which was perfect because it was due to rain the whole time we were going to be in Paris and Disneyland. And on that day, the 14th, it was so beautiful, clear skies, sunshine, cold, but like blue skies. It was beautiful in the morning, and then by the afternoon it was raining. So we totally got very lucky with that. And it's funny, we were walking back across the bridge after we'd been up the Eiffel Tower, and we just caught the end of a proposal, and Perry was just like, oh, so cliche, proposing in Paris on Valentine's Day. And I was like, yeah, but if we didn't catch at least one proposal whilst we were in Paris on Valentine's Day, that's going to be that would be a little bit, I feel like I'd missed out almost. Although having said that, Perry actually proposed to me whilst we were in Paris on a trip, so I don't know what he's on about. Although it wasn't Valentine's Day and it was private, like he did it in our Airbnb, like it wasn't like in public or anything like that. So it was a very, very lovely moment. But that was in June, so July, not on Valentine's Day. But it was really funny because I was retelling this story to a friend, and she was just like, oh, so how did Perry propose? And I was like, he proposed in Paris. And it was just hilarious because the irony of that comment by him hadn't hit me until that moment when I was retelling the story. Anyway, we had a great time. Layla absolutely loved Disneyland. She was so excited about the whole thing. She went on her very first roller coaster. She was very brave. And yeah, all in all, we had a great time. I was starting to feel the effects of the pelvic girdle pain quite intensely during that trip, and by the end of each day I was barely functioning, shall we say. I was finding it really hard to move around, and you know, obviously there were some rides I wasn't allowed to go on, but overall it was a really good experience. I just wish I bought one of those pelvic support belts once we got back. I just really wish I had it when we were in Paris and when we were in Disneyland, because that would have really helped. But I wear it now if I'm going to be on my feet a lot, and that really helps, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's it for now. I don't think there's anything else that I wanted to talk about today. I think I've caught you guys up on everything that's been going on. I will have links to the loop sweater, to my Ravelry shops, to my newsletter, and I'll also have links to the yarn dispensary where I'm going to be teaching later this month down below, so you can go and check all those things out. If there is something that I have mentioned that you cannot find a link for, or or whatever that you're struggling to find, let me know in the comments and I will try and find a link for you or answer your questions, etc. I can't guarantee that I will be super prompt with answers and getting back to you, but I will. If you have a question, I will definitely try and respond as soon as I can. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you guys again soon, and hopefully not miss a month again. But like I said, things have just been hectic the last couple of weeks, and I will see you guys again soon. Take care. Bye.